All right, so let's talk about liberals then. So yeah, someone said, is it like an ideological? Let's have my hands wet. Is it like an ideological thing with liberals? All right, so let's talk about liberal ideology. So basically, I made a whole video about this. Why do liberals like Israel? So they buy into the propaganda that Israel is some sort of beacon of tolerance in the Middle East, completely ignoring Israel doesn't have equal rights for gay people anyway. But also, it has loads of religious fundamentalism in it too, and that's how Netanyahu got in power in the first place. So they don't understand. The thing is, I made a video on this on Twitter the other day. Maybe we'll watch it together. People do not understand anything about Israel-Palestine. I'm convinced, and I'm saying this as someone in good faith, most leftists do not know anything about it either. But here's the thing, right? Because leftists have good morals, they can see what's going on and learn about it. Liberals don't have good morals, so they think they know better, and that's why they lecture people. Like, I'm saying this like very nicely as someone who has like is privileged enough to have a very good education, especially in the Middle East. I would say I know more about it than I'd say pretty much every other YouTuber, bar like a couple, right? And I always say to people, it's not complicated. The solution is complicated. The solution, which would have to have loads of compromise, that's super complicated. Knowing who's good and bad is not complicated. And it's clear Israel is the bad guys in this situation. And historically, like, it's Israel as a construct is actually comically evil. Who is helping South Africa, apartheid South Africa, make nuclear weapons? Oh, it's Israel. Who is bombing a nuclear power plant in Iraq in the 80s? It's Israel. Who's sterilizing Ethiopian Jews, which they, saved from this famine, right? In this airlift, then they sterilize them. Israel does that. Who locks up children without trial? Israel. It's actually like comically evil. We think the US is bad, and it isn't in its own ways. And I said the US is like one of the worst imperial powers, but I think Israel is actually one of the worst countries in the world as a nation state in terms of their actions. And then you have 89% of the country supporting the apartheid status quo, and most people supporting the war, and most people serve in the military, and most people don't vote for a party that is against the occupation, right? So you have a hyper militarized society and a country that does absolutely terrible shit historically and has gotten worse and worse and worse, and liberals are trying to tell you that it's complicated. It's really not complicated. It's not complicated at all, right? And I was actually speaking to someone who is German English. I think that's how you describe it. We were talking about the Palestine stuff in Germany, because even German leftists support Israel, because it's some sort of guilt for how Germany have treated the Jews historically, culminating in the Holocaust, right? And they literally see it as some sort of land back thing. Like, they genuinely think, and it's some absolutely insane guilt, because these people, most of them now in Germany, they weren't even alive when World War II happened, and they still support Israel because they think they're fighting against anti-Semitism, which is like absolutely crazy to me that they can't see that. No, they are not the same things. Being anti-Zionist is literally being against a colonial ideology. Being anti-Semitic is like believing racist like stereotypes about Jewish people controlling the world banks or something. So yeah, a lot of liberals have weaponized or are so brainwashed by wokeness. And here people get sometimes mad. I'm woke, right? I don't see it as a negative thing. So don't get me wrong with that. I don't think woke is a negative thing. But what I think the colloquial woke means is like liberal identity politics. I think originally that's what it meant. And now it just means like everything, right? But if we understand it as something about liberal identity politics, that's how you can view liberal support for Israel. Is that they think Muslims backwards, Muslims uncivilized, Israel civilized, and they've gone through so much, and they're the natives. Israelis are native to Palestine, which is another fucking myth, which every liberal seems to believe. So let's get into this. Here's another one. I made a video last week, and I posted it on my Twitter. People don't know fucking anything about Hamas, and liberals acting like they know something about it is infuriating to me. Like, they legit know nothing about it, and that's why these liberal takes drive me absolutely insane. Because, okay, like I said, I don't think most people know about anything to do with Hamas, but at the same time, liberals have this like chauvinism, they have this racism, which makes them describe it in a certain way. This is the video I made, but I'll just talk about it instead. So Claudia Brown, I don't know who this person is, some sort of like liberal destiny support or whatever. All right, so Hamas doesn't give a fuck about Palestinian people. They use their people as human shields. If you claim to be for Palestine people, you should be against those that use them as human shields and escalate shit to the point peace becomes basically impossible. So you're blaming the Palestinians for what's happening, basically. And this notion that Hamas are some sort of like Islamic jihadi mafia that won't let Palestinians be free is insane to me. Hamas is the government of not Palestine, is the government of Gaza. Like it or not, the same way, Iran is ruled by the Ayatollah. If you don't like that, then that's fine. But that's just the reality. Hamas runs the territory. And they were elected to run the territory. So acting like Palestinians are victims of Hamas the same way they are victims of Israel is literally Israeli propaganda. And you're basically implying with this take, if Israel could simply not kill civilians, but just kill Hamas fighters, the Palestinians would be grateful. They wouldn't be, because it fundamentally doesn't understand the situation. And this is another take I keep seeing. And I think it's both motivated by Palestinians have to do this or they'll be labelled terrorists if they try and bring nuance to it. And liberals are just fucking idiots who don't understand that most people fighting right now, the Israelis, have grown up in Gaza under Hamas control. They don't see Hamas as evil Nazi ISIS. They just see them as the fucking government. And if you want to fight the Israelis, you join them. It's as simple as that. It's like the Ukrainians, right? There's Ukrainian anarchists fighting. They don't like the Ukrainian state, but they join the Ukrainian state to fight Russia. They join the Ukrainian state's army to fight Russia, right? So you understand that, but you don't understand why a 17-year-old, 16-year-old kid who's grown up in an open-air prison, no electricity hardly, like barely any access to clean water and food, cannot fucking leave. Why would they join Hamas? And acting like Hamas hold these people hostage is just insane racism, shows you don't understand anything about the conflict. Like, you literally don't know fucking anything. You're an idiot. You're just a fucking racist. You think Hamas are ISIS. And that's why Israel say it, because they know fucking idiots like this who believe this shit, they know they think Hamas are ISIS. And here's another thing as well. People saying Hamas are Iran proxies also don't fucking understand the politics of the Middle East, because historically, Hamas have not been backed by Iran. That's Hezbollah. They're not the same thing. Hezbollah was created by Iran. Hamas has traditionally been funded by Qatar and also by the Saudis and by covertly all like Sunni nations, because they're a Sunni group. Hezbollah is a Shiite political group. Hamas is Sunni. They're literally completely different sects of Islam, and they were backed by rival powers. Iran backs Hezbollah. It's completely different. So that's another thing I don't understand. But to them, it's Muslims. Like, they're all the same. Which, again, insane to me. Saddam Hussein backed Hamas. Saudis backed Hamas. Iran backed Hezbollah. Like, and the only thing is, sometimes Hamas and Hezbollah join together to work on certain things. But historically, they haven't had great relations with each other because they don't like each other. One thing they do like is they like fighting the Israelis. And they do it for different reasons. But again, Hezbollah are not the same as Hamas. Hamas are not an Iran stooge. Yeah, now they might be getting some weapons from Iran, I imagine, and Syria, just to fight the Israelis because of geopolitics. But historically, Hamas have not been in bed with Iran. That's, like I said, Hezbollah was literally created by Iran. That's what was in bed with Iran. But again, people don't understand this shit. People literally know nothing. And that's why sometimes I wish I didn't know stuff. Because when you know all this stuff, and you see everyone just having like terrible shit takes because they don't understand about the politics of the Middle East. Like, literally, I don't know anyone I could have a conversation with who probably even knows Hamas are different to ISIS. Like, why are Hamas different to Hezbollah? Why are Hamas different to Al-Qaeda? People, this person in particular is just a symptom of loads of people not knowing that. And of course, Hamas comes from the Muslim Brotherhood. Muslim Brotherhood is Egyptian. Muslim Brotherhood historically has wanted Sharia law, but has worked with poor groups in Egypt, been banned by Egypt, did get power after the Egyptian revolution, then the government overthrew them. So it's very complicated. I love Middle Eastern history. I love Middle Eastern politics. I did a fucking master's degree that focused on this. So I know what I'm talking about with this stuff. But that's what I mean. That's why it's so frustrating. Because people fundamentally know nothing about Hamas. They don't know that they run most of the, the Gaza Strip. They don't know why they were elected in the first place, because they were elected in an election. I'm not someone who pretends that Hamas doesn't represent certain Palestinian people. People voted for Hamas because they were desperate and they hated the status quo. They felt like Yasser Arafat and the PLO had sold them out to Israel, so they voted for a more militant group. They didn't give a shit that they were Muslim Brotherhood. Honestly, It's the same with the Egyptian election. A lot of people didn't give a shit that they were voting for Muslim Brotherhood. Because, Palestinians and Egyptians share that relationship of they're not all Islamic fundamentalists, but sometimes they'll vote for stuff like that because they feel like they want to change something. So in the Egyptian revolution, the secular parties did terrible because they weren't promised any change that made any sense, where the Islamist parties were offering change. So people voted for them. Same thing happened in fucking Gaza in like 2005, 2006 as well. So again, you already have all this context, but then if you're just some rando guy who grows up there, you're not even going to think it's bad, and then your fucking brother, dad, or your whole family gets killed by an IDF bomb. Are you really going to start going around thinking, oh my God, Hamas are holding me hostage? And the human shields thing is absolute bullshit. Israel attacks them no matter what. It doesn't matter. They're bombing hospitals, schools. They're not looking for Hamas. They want to, and that's what I mean. They fundamentally don't understand it, these liberals. They think this is a war. It's not a war. It's ethnic cleansing and genocide so Israel can finally take over the remaining Palestinian territories, as people like Netanyahu, if you read that, little biography about him in the 70s, he's always wanted to do this. So again, liberal racism thinking that Palestinians cause their own problems and Hamas, are some sort of outside Iranian force imprisoning them in Gaza is absolutely insane and racist as hell. And again, even if I said this to this person's face, whoever this person is, do you think they'd change their mind? Or would they think I'm being a conspiracy theorist racist? I can guarantee you it'd be the second one. Yeah, this is a good point. The same shit with the US when Saddam and Al-Qaeda were Muslims all the same time. Yeah, it literally is war on terror. 20 years ago, we invaded Iraq. We're doing the exact same shit here. Al-Qaeda literally put out a hit on Saddam Hussein and said any good Muslim would kill him. And at the same time, we're meant to believe, and 70% of Americans believed, that Saddam Hussein was involved in 9/11, and if he had nukes, he'd give them to Al-Qaeda. Because they know, like how the IDF and Israel know, they know Westerners fucking hate Muslims and Arabs, and they see them all as the same thing. So Al-Qaeda and Saddam Hussein, despite one being Arab socialist Ba'athist versus fundamentalist Wahhabi group, they think they're the same thing. Same now with Hamas. They think Hamas is ISIS, when it's actually absolutely completely different. And here's another fucking guy. Didn't this guy used to be like some sort of COD streamer? Israel is not trying to murder all Palestinians in Gaza. That's the point. The death count is sobering and horrific, but intent matters, does it? A campaign of genocide was actually what Israel was going for. My friend, the circumstances we see now would be unimaginably worse. How do they get worse? I honestly don't understand how they get worse. Do they drop a nuke on Israel? Do they drop a nuke on Palestine next? Pointing out the extreme voices in the parliament engaging in maniacal rhetoric doesn't negate what's actually happening. Hamas straight up comes out and says we want to annihilate every Jew and end the state of Israel. Their attack on October 7th was not a military strike on the IDF, it was a full-on genocidal action. There doesn't seem to be any real acknowledgement of this from the folks that keep screaming genocide over and over again. This guy is another fucking liberal idiot. How is Israel not trying to do genocide? Netanyahu has made the point that he wants to get them out of Gaza, right? How is that not genocide? And also, even if they weren't trying to do a genocide, why does it fucking matter at this point? They've killed 10,000 people. And also, what I was saying about the Hamas stuff, they always say this, oh, if Hamas could have the same power as Israel, they'd kill them all. Israel can't just kill all Palestinians as quickly as they want. Do you know why? Because these people are fucking brain-dead idiots. If Israel tried to nuke Palestine or some shit, Iran would invade them tomorrow. And it would literally probably kick off World War III. Israel know that to do this, it has to be slower. They know if they called up every IDF soldier and invaded Gaza tomorrow, they know that could spark a massive conflict with Egypt. And I know Egypt normalized relations and they're in bed with the US, but the Egyptian people would literally try and overthrow the government if this happened. Same with a lot of these governments. The Saudis wouldn't accept this. So Israel, for as much as they are unhinged, they know they can't do stuff crazy fast. If they killed 10,000 people in a week, or even a couple days, which he says they could, I know they could do that. They don't do that on purpose because they have a political disinformation campaign working at the same time so they can get away with this. How people don't understand that if Israel just went in tomorrow and tried to kill in one day 30,000 Palestinians or kill them all, then that would literally kick off World War III. And they know that. They know that it would literally be Syria, Iran, probably invading straight away. It would literally kick off a war. They know they have to do this so they can isolate different groups. They can have the diplomatic war. They can get the Americans to back them and basically tell the Saudis and others, like, oh, don't react too harshly because we know all the Arab states have sold out the Palestinians. So yeah, like this guy, and it's a smugness as well. It's that he actually knows what he's talking about, and he doesn't know what he's talking about. Who is this fucking guy to tell anyone about the situation? There's nobody trying to say that, oh, Hamas wants to do genocide, but Israel didn't. But because Israel is currently doing one and Hamas isn't, we still need to remember that. Like, how's that helpful? I mean, even if Hamas did say we want to kill every Jew and Israeli and kill them all, yeah, they don't have the capacity for that, and they're not doing that right now. Yeah, they did a horrible attack which targeted civilians, but you can also see that in the context of 70 years of ethnic cleansing onto the Palestinians, and it's a very violent, radicalized extremist reaction to that, which is what you get when you create desperate people. You get extremism. We all understand this when it comes to Iraq and Afghanistan. Why don't we understand it here? But yeah, these guys they just don't know anything. And that's just so frustrating because, like I said, I know most people don't know anything. And I don't have a problem with that because we all, have specialities and different histories. People do history. We all know different things. Most people don't know much about Israel. Most Westerners know fuck all about the difference between Hamas and Hezbollah. they know nothing about this stuff. But at the same time, like I said, when you have a good core set of values and politics, as leftists often do, you can be open to the information and you realize what side is worse, what side is just doing more destruction, and Israel is the bad guy. So liberals like this, oh my god, like I said, let me know in the chat if I spoke to either of these people I just showed you. Do you think they changed their mind? Do you think I could convince them? Even though I know what I'm talking about, I'm right as much as I can be. Like, I would call it like objective truth, but I am explaining a situation like the reality. They would never accept what I'm saying. And that's what I mean. Liberal racism and liberal brainwashing makes these people just have absolutely shit takes. I had to unfollow some people I'm even mutuals with because I'm like, you're such a fucking liberal. You're just posting racist shit all the time. And I thought you were better than this. I actually collabed with someone about Israel-Palestine and they're having terrible takes. So I'm like, how did I go on your channel and tell you about this? And then you're having these takes. Here's the thing. And it's not just Americans, but it is Americans. And I have seen some British people. So I think when it comes to domestic politics, a lot of people can be okay in terms of like have more like a leftist analysis of domestic politics and like the economy and all that stuff. But I think the problem comes when we start talking about international politics, because they're so ignorant. The problem then is like they don't understand how to actually project their politics because they see, oh my god, scary Hamas terrorists. That reminds me of the war on terror, and they attack Israel first. So therefore, like I actually think Israel are the good guys here because I don't know anything, and then most of the people I know are saying Israel are the bad guys, but I don't actually think that because I don't know anything, and to me it seems like they're not. So I know I'm going to have to stay quiet and not say anything because if I say something, it becomes controversial. And then if you do say something, if you're a more like vague leftist, then people in your own audience start getting mad. Oh my god, you support Hamas terrorists.